Something happened recently that the mainstream media refuses to fully report. A man tried to kill Captain Ibrahim Traore, the young revolutionary leader of Burkina Faso. But this wasn't just any man. He wasn't a lone wolf. He was sent. And now, he's confessed. As this explosive revelation breaks across Africa, we're also seeing a strange phenomenon. Hundreds of people protesting against Traore in the streets of Paris and Italy. But who are they really? Are these voices of dissent from the Burkinabe diaspora, or something more sinister? Today, we're breaking the silence. This isn't just about one leader. This is about a new Africa. One that refuses to be controlled, manipulated, or sold out. One that stands tall, proud, and ready to fight for its sovereignty. And make no mistake, there are enemies of that vision. They wear suits in Paris, they hold flags in Rome, and some of them look just like us. This is the story of the attempted assassination of Captain Traore, the foreign interference, the traitors, and the awakening of a continent that is finally saying, enough. Before we talk about the bullets, we need to understand the man they were meant for. Captain Ibrahim Traore. To some, he's a rebel. To others, a savior. But no matter where you stand, one thing is undeniable. This man has shaken the foundation of neo-colonial power in West Africa. They didn't come at him in a debate. They didn't challenge him with ideas or dialogue. They came with a gun. In early 2024, reports broke out of Ouagadougou. There had been an attempt on the life of Captain Ibrahim Traore. Official sources were tight-lipped at first, but the rumors spread like wildfire. A man had been caught attempting to infiltrate security layers around the captain. Armed, silent, trained. But he failed. And that's where it gets deeper. When interrogated, this man did not resist. He confessed. He said he was sent. Sent by who? That's the part that hasn't made it to CNN, BBC, or RFI. Because the answer, if truly investigated, could burn international relationships to the ground. Insiders close to the investigation, including military sources and local journalists, claim this was no random lone wolf. This was a contract operation, designed to eliminate the single biggest threat to neo-colonial interests in the Sahel. According to leaked reports, the suspect had ties to foreign NGOs and regional operatives suspected of working in covert partnerships with intelligence bodies outside the continent. This wasn't a political opponent. This wasn't a citizen with grievances. This was a mercenary, backed by money and mission. And here's the bigger question. Why are international players so terrified of Traore staying in power? Because he's disrupting the model. The model where African leaders are kept compliant through debt, dependency, and fear. The model where foreign troops get permanent bases under the guise of security, while minerals get looted in plain sight. This assassination attempt was not just about removing a man. It was about stopping a movement. And that movement, led by Traore, is gaining momentum every single day. But they failed. And now the masks are coming off. He was caught. He was armed. And when the Burkinabe authorities cornered him, he broke. I was sent. Those are the words that sent a shockwave through the inner circles of West Africa's military resistance. And while the full interrogation footage hasn't been made public, deliberately, the information leaked tells a disturbing tale. This was not a local plot. This man had no known political affiliations inside Burkina Faso. He wasn't from any domestic resistance group. He wasn't even fully Burkinabe. Some reports suggest he held a dual identity, one tied to a European country, and another linked to a non-governmental humanitarian organization that had been quietly expelled from several African nations in the past 2 years. Coincidence? We don't think so. More alarmingly, the suspect admitted under pressure that he received direct orders from contacts in a West African embassy in Europe. The specific country was not named officially, but insiders suspect strong ties to French-speaking European intelligence networks. Let's pause for a second. This is not a Hollywood movie. This is real. A young African head of state, facing down centuries of foreign manipulation, is now the target of coup plots tied, not to internal rebellion, but to foreign interests who've lost control of their asset. The confession also exposed the timing. Just weeks before the attempt, Burkina Faso had Suspended operations of multiple foreign NGOs, refused a French-backed security training proposal, entered deeper talks with Russia and other non-Western allies. That wasn't a coincidence either. The message was clear: if you won't bow, we'll remove you. And yet, here's the beauty of it. He survived. Because for every bullet they plan, there are thousands of hearts that beat stronger. Traore wasn't just protected by security. He was protected by the will of the people. And the confession of this would-be assassin only confirmed what many Africans already suspected: that the enemies of African freedom don't always come with flags or armies. Sometimes they come dressed as allies. Sometimes they hide behind embassies and fake protests. Crowds were seen marching through the streets of Paris and Rome, chanting against Captain Traore, waving signs that called for his resignation, and claiming to represent the true voice of Burkinabe citizens. But we have to ask, who are these people, really? The media, especially Western outlets, rushed to label them as diaspora protests. But what they didn't tell you is that many of these so-called protesters were paid, rented for the day, fed for their presence, and told exactly what to say. Footage later emerged showing a protester taking off his sign, throwing it in the trash, and collecting cash from a man in a parked car. The video was quickly taken down from several platforms, but not before the truth spread through Pan-African Telegram channels and local outlets. These protests weren't organic. They were manufactured dissent, created by the very forces that have lost their grip on West Africa. Let's break it down. The chants were generic, no authentic cultural slogans. The flags were mostly Western-printed banners, not locally made. The demographic was highly inconsistent. Many didn't even speak the Moray or Dioula dialects common among real Burkinabe communities. Even more damning? Multiple protest leaders were exposed on social media as being long-time NGO affiliates, with connections to organizations that had received grants from European embassies in the past. And let's be honest, if Traore really was hated by his people, why are the protests happening in Paris and Rome, and not in Ouagadougou? We'll tell you why. Because these aren't protests. They're public relations campaigns, paid for, organized, scripted. And every African who joins them is not a freedom fighter. They are an enemy of African sovereignty. You can't claim to love Africa while carrying water for her oppressors. You can't wave the Burkinabe flag in Paris while plotting to take down a man who gave it back its dignity. Those agents in the streets of Europe don't represent Africa. They represent colonialism 2.0, funded, trained, and sent to confuse, divide, and conquer. Africa was never truly left alone. Yes, flags were lowered, national anthems were written, and parliaments were formed. But the real power? The money, the minerals, the decisions, they stayed in foreign hands. Burkina Faso is not the first African country to experience interference. And Captain Traore is not the first leader they've tried to silence or eliminate. From Lumumba in Congo, to Thomas Sankara in Burkina Faso, from Gaddafi in Libya to Modibo Keïta in Mali. The playbook has always been the same: demonize the leader in the media, fund opposition groups, train loyal military factions, and when that doesn't work, assassinate, physically, politically, or economically. Fast forward to today, they've simply upgraded their tools. Now they use NGOs, international loans, sanctions, and media propaganda to do the dirty work. Take a look at France's military presence across West Africa. Bases in Chad, Niger, Côte d'Ivoire, Djibouti, all under the excuse of stabilization. But ask yourself, what exactly are they stabilizing? And while French companies extract gold, uranium, cocoa, and oil, African countries are left with poverty, instability, and rising debt. This is not partnership. This is plunder in a suit and tie. And when a leader like Traore steps up and says, "Enough is enough, the gold stays here, the decisions stay here, the future is ours," that's when the system starts shaking. What follows is predictable. Western analysts call him a threat to democracy. UN reports mysteriously find human rights concerns. European think tanks issue warnings about radicalization. But the truth is simple. They are not afraid of chaos. They are afraid of control. African control. Captain Traore, by standing tall, is exposing the fact that Africa has always had power. It's just been stolen, hidden, and controlled. And now, that power is waking up. This is no longer about Burkina Faso. It's about the soul of Africa. Captain Ibrahim Traore is more than a soldier. He is more than a president. He is now a symbol. A symbol of a generation that is tired of excuses, tired of puppets, tired of leaders who bow instead of lead. Traore represents a new African archetype, the unapologetic, bold, Pan-African warrior. Like Sankara before him, like Nkrumah, like Lumumba. Traore reminds us that Africa's greatest power lies within its own people, its own hands, and its own history. In Burkina Faso, he has become a unifier, not by force, but by faith. Faith in a shared destiny, faith in the idea that Africa doesn't need to beg, borrow, or bend. Faith in a future where our land is no longer exploited, but respected. You see, what many outsiders don't understand is this. Traore didn't rise to power through manipulation. He rose through conviction, through the tears of a country that watched its own sons and daughters die in terror attacks while its leaders dined in French embassies. He came with no polished PR campaign, no foreign backers, no fancy slogans. Just a message. Africa must be free, and Burkina Faso will lead that charge. Today, his portrait hangs not just in homes, but in the hearts of millions. From Bamako to Cotonou, from Accra to Dakar. Because people see in him what they've long waited for. Courage, direction, and no compromise. He doesn't just speak for Burkina Faso. He speaks for every African youth who's tired of being told you can't. For every grandmother who remembers a time when her village fed itself without foreign aid. For every worker who mines gold they'll never get paid for. Captain Traore stands at the crossroads of the old Africa, exploited, divided, silenced, and the new Africa, united, vocal, and rising. And that, more than anything, is why they fear him. Sometimes, the greatest danger to Africa doesn't wear a foreign uniform. It wears our skin, speaks our languages, sits at our tables, and sells us out. We're not just talking about the colonizers. We're talking about the puppets, the collaborators, the elites who eat well while the people starve. These are the so-called influential Africans who fly to Paris to denounce their own leaders, appear on TV panels funded by foreign NGOs, write think pieces calling Pan-African leaders dangerous, accept grants, bribes, and backroom deals to stir division. You've seen them, maybe even respected them once. But now, their masks are off. These are the ones behind the fake protests, the ones who push propaganda from European capitals while never setting foot in their own villages. They are the modern-day house slaves, polished, educated, and perfectly trained to echo the voices of those who once whipped our ancestors. They smile in our faces and sign away our future. They tell us, revolution is unrealistic, while they cash checks signed in Brussels. They tell us Traore is a dictator, while bowing to presidents who ordered drone strikes on innocent Africans. Let it be clear, these are not brothers. They are not comrades. They are not critics. They are traitors, enemies of Africa in African skin. And history will remember them the same way we remember the ones who betrayed Lumumba, Sankara, and Nkrumah, with shame. Because in this fight, neutrality is a lie. You're either with Africa, or you're in the way. Africa stands at the edge of a new chapter. Not just Burkina Faso, not just Mali or Guinea, but the entire continent, from Cape Town to Cairo, Dakar to Dar es Salaam. This is not just a fight over one leader. This is not just about Traore. This is about a continental awakening. An awakening that says, our land is not for sale. Our leaders must answer to us, not to embassies. Our destiny will no longer be dictated by foreign hands. Yes, the bullets were real. Yes, the protests were staged. Yes, the traitors live among us. But none of it is enough to stop what's coming. Because Africa is tired. And the tired are dangerous. Captain Traore may have been the target of an assassination plot, but the attempt failed. Not just because of security, but because of divine timing. Because Africa is not done with him yet. because his voice echoes what millions have carried in silence for decades. This is the war for Africa's future. A war fought with words, with courage, with unity. A war fought not for revenge, but for restoration. So we ask you now, will you stand with the ones who bleed for freedom? Or will you hide behind hashtags and headlines funded by those who chained your ancestors? Because neutrality is complicity, and silence is surrender. Traore is here to stay. Africa is rising, and nothing can stop the people when they finally remember their power. Africa will be free. Make Africa great. Burkina Faso, a small yet powerful nation in the heart of West Africa, is once again making headlines. Not for war, not for collapse, but for resistance, for leadership, and for a young, bold president who has become a symbol of African sovereignty, Ibrahim Traore. In a time when coups have rattled the continent and global powers tighten their grip, one man refuses to kneel. 30 times. That's how many attempts have allegedly been made to silence him. But he's still standing, stronger than ever. This isn't just a story of political drama. It's a story of courage, of conviction, and of a growing movement to make Africa great on its own terms. As soon as he took office, Traore drew a line in the sand. He began distancing Burkina Faso from former colonial powers, rejecting military aid that came with strings attached, and speaking openly about African independence and anti-imperialism. But with every bold step came resistance, not just from outside, but from within. Political elites, foreign-backed agents, and hidden power brokers saw him as a threat. Coup attempts started surfacing, whispers of betrayal, hidden hands pulling strings. And yet, each time, Traore came back stronger. 30 attempts, 30 chances to take him out. And still he walks free. Some say it's luck, others say it's divine protection. But one thing is certain, his enemies are real, and they are relentless. From car bomb plots to insider betrayals, every attempt carries the same message. You're not supposed to lead like this. You're not supposed to awaken the people. But he has, and he won't stop. Traore's power doesn't come from military ranks or political titles. It comes from the people. In cities and villages, young and old, men and women rally behind his name. They see him as one of them. Someone who represents the fight for dignity, for jobs, for safety, and for pride in being Burkinabe. He's awakened something that colonialism and corruption tried to bury: hope. Let's talk about the elephant in the room: France. For decades, France maintained a presence in its former colonies, militarily, economically, culturally. Traore disrupted that. He questioned the presence of French troops. He spoke openly about neo-colonialism, and he aligned Burkina Faso with other revolutionary states in the Sahel. This shift drew the anger of global actors who preferred the status quo, and some suspect they're behind the ongoing plots. But Traore's stance was clear: we will not be free until Africa decides its own path. In a historic move, Traore joined forces with the leaders of Mali and Niger to form a regional alliance focused on mutual defense, shared resources, and Pan-African progress. This alliance, sometimes referred to as the Sahel Trio, is more than strategic. It's symbolic. It represents a new generation of African leadership that refuses to be puppets of the West. Together, they're building a blueprint for African resilience. Many in Burkina Faso believe Traore's survival isn't just physical, it's spiritual. Elders, priests, and community leaders speak of a divine purpose. That some leaders are chosen to rise when the people need them most. That Traore was destined to stand where others fell. Whether you believe it or not, there's no denying this. The man walks with fire and faith. He's not perfect, he's not invincible, but he's a symbol. To some, Traore is the spirit of Thomas Sankara reborn. To others, he's the proof that African youth can lead with vision, courage, and authenticity. He represents a future where Africa doesn't beg for help, but builds its own destiny. Traore's government continues to battle insurgency and political sabotage. Reforms are underway, security is tight, and the people remain alert. But hope remains strong. The belief that Burkina Faso can lead Africa's second liberation, this time, not from colonizers, but from fear and doubt. To every young African watching this story isn't just about Ibrahim Traore. It's about you. It's about us. Our leaders, our struggles, our victories. They tried to kill him 30 times, but he's still standing, not just as a man, but as a message. Africa is rising.